there's a lot more, I think, rounded skill set that people are looking for that switch in-house, and the area of law that someone, particularly at a junior level, has been focused on doesn't necessarily limit whether you can move into something quite different in-house.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the Student Lawyer podcast series. Whether you're at school, sixth form, university, thinking about a career in law, or exploring law careers, you're in the right place. We are the one-stop shop for student lawyers. If you'd like to join the Student Lawyer as a writer, please email hello@thestudentlawyer.com. This episode is sponsored by the University of Law. The University of Law offers a range of undergraduate and postgraduate courses and master's degrees alongside an award-winning pro bono clinic, so you can build up your legal experience while studying. And their experienced career service will enable you to put your best foot forward when launching your legal career. The courses are employment focused and based on real legal practice, so you'll be better prepared for the workplace. Part-time and online study options are available so you can work and study at the same time. Click the link in the description box of the podcast to find out more about the courses on offer. Welcome to the Student Lawyer podcast series. My name's Camilla. I'm a trainee solicitor and I am your host for today. In today's episode, we are joined by Scott Brown. Scott trained as a corporate lawyer before going on to start his own company, Heriot Brown's in-house legal recruitment, which is a recruitment company specializing in recruiting in-house lawyers at all levels across a wide range of sectors and disciplines. In today's show, Scott is going to be providing us with insight into what being an in-house lawyer involves, what in-house recruiters are looking for when they are hiring lawyers, what practice areas that trainee solicitors should think about qualifying into if they're interested in working in-house later on in their careers, and the benefits of speaking to recruiters regularly. So without further ado, let's hand it over to Scott. Welcome to the Student Lawyer podcast, Scott. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Camilla. It's great to be on it, and big shout out to you guys for the podcast. I think it's amazing having been a lawyer or at university back in God knows how long ago. I think as a resource for people thinking about a career in law, it's great that you're giving it that exposure. So congratulations on it.
Thank you very much. I'd love to hear more about your career history to date. So perhaps you could shed a bit of light on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for asking. So I'm a recovering lawyer is how I'd describe myself. So I'm managing director and founder of a recruitment business that specializes in placing lawyers in-house into roles within corporates, financial services institutions, and public sector organizations. And we're one of the leading specialists within that space in the UK. But before I got into recruitment, into the dark arts, I practiced as a lawyer. So I trained and qualified with a firm in Edinburgh. The accent might give me away. They're now run by Addleshaw Goddard, or part of Addleshaw Goddard, but at the time it was HPJ Gately Waring. At the time, qualified as into corporate after my 2-year training contract, and really enjoyed that time working on private equity and venture capital deals, and then moved myself to Australia and worked in Sydney as a lawyer, more focused. It was still project work, but it was still corporate work, but more of a project slant, so on energy and resources sectors. But during my career as a lawyer, I felt a little bit out of place, didn't really feel at home or fulfilled in the career that I was doing. I think I was always looking that the grass was always greener. So having gone through the training contract, I think I always seen that as the milestone for when I would maybe switch careers without really too much planning as to what that looked like. So I found myself in Australia about, I don't know, 4 years qualified, a little bit. It felt like I was stagnating a little bit in my career. Wasn't really driven by the partner track. And at that time, I thought I'd kind of landed, did a lot of soul searching as to what I really enjoyed, and that was dealing with people. The people element of the law was great, dealing with like client relationships where I had exposure at an associate level. So found I was more motivated in a sales environment, and that was when I fell into recruitment, like a lot of people do, and worked with one of the larger legal recruitment companies at that time when I moved back to London, and then founded Heriot Brown in 2016.
That sounds like a very exciting career history. I love the fact that you've worked in different countries like Australia. That must have been really, really exciting.
Yeah, it was cool. It was a place I've always. I don't know if have you been to Australia?
Not yet. No, yeah. It's on my list.
Yeah, it's one of those. I think for a lawyer, and going through and qualifying whatever specialism that someone specialized in, it can be quite limiting because it's like jurisdictions and qualification routes into the profession vary so much from country to country, and Europe's kind of a hard one to crack because of the civil law jurisdiction. So Australia, being Commonwealth by background, it was always somewhere where through training contract thought it was qualifying into corporate. It's quite transferable, and yeah, it's great place to live. Amazing lifestyle, just very far away, very far from home. So yeah, but good times.
Well, I'll have to look into that. It's not something that I previously considered, but yeah, I think I have heard that the legal system is it's not too difficult for English qualified lawyers to go over there. So yeah, that's a great option. Yeah. So I wondered if you could explain to me and the listeners what the key differences are between a career in-house and a career in a private practice law firm.
Yeah, absolutely. So very good question and good starting point, I think, for explaining what we do as a business. But I remember being at the majority of your listeners are at university considering a career in law, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah. So I remember being at careers fairs at university when I was studying my LLB and looking at doing the LPC and exploring that route. And obviously the law firms would come around and sell their wares. And likewise, there would be some in-house teams that perhaps offered training contracts, and just to give a bit of a flavour as to what they did. And I never really quite got it. But I think in simple terms, in a law firm, you're working for a service provider that sells legal services, and packages those up. So you have regardless of the sector specialism or area of law that you're specialized in, you'll have a mix of clients that you work for and provide legal advice to on a whole host of subject matters within a very narrow subject matter that you're specialized within in that law firm, versus in-house, you work for, so you're employed by the corporate or the organization that you work for, and they're your own individual client. So you're acting as a business advisor, you're a stakeholder within that business, and legal's a support function to help that corporation achieve what its commercial objectives are. So like the likes of any consumer brand that you can think of, Amazon, Google, Facebook, energy companies, they all have internal in-house legal functions that help that business meet its commercial goals. So you're in a slightly more, I think, non-legal capacity in that. So using your legal knowledge and risk management that you've gained to advise that business and help it navigate risks that might crop up.
So, the two roles sound, quite different. And a lot of the career advice that's out there, I think, is sort of aimed towards careers in private practice. But from a legal recruitment point of view, do you think that in-house legal teams are looking for something different to private practice recruiters, and do you think that in-house experience is required for people who want to move in-house?
Yeah, it's a really good point you make. They're quite different careers, and it's how we it's really how we sort of explain that to people that are looking to make the switch, whether it's early on in their career or as a post-qualified career, or later on in their career. And you almost have to have that mindset that it is a bit of a career switch, because the skill sets aren't necessarily aligned in every place. Like, your motivations, I think, as well as a lawyer, they perhaps change and are on a bit of a cycle through qualifying, where it might be more exciting working all hours under the sun and jumping when a client says, I need something done, and meeting deadlines, which is all great. But sometimes having more of a commercial slant, or being exposed to issues that aren't necessarily law, because legal departments can often be seen as a bit of a blocker rather than an enabler. So people's motivations change. And I think, like, in-house legal teams, the profession's changing as a whole. The SQE route into the profession is opening up a whole load of other options and angles for law firms and in-house legal teams to bring people on through at an earlier stage. And I think that'll be really interesting to see how that plays out in sort of meeting the needs of in-house legal teams, and where in the future what skill sets and career experience they might look for. Because your other point there was around, are they looking for something different, looking to hire something different? And I would say, very, very much so. In a private practice career, so I'm speaking from personal experience, having worked as a lawyer and then seeing it from the recruitment angle as well. And I probably feel I know more about being a lawyer now than I ever did when I was one, from all the conversations that I have. So, like, it's quite early on in your career after in the typical private practice route, where you're 6 months rotations, training contracts, you're moved into and qualifying into whatever team that perhaps has an opening, or we're currently going into, or you read in the press, we're going into recession. So perhaps insolvency will be a larger restructuring, will be a larger focus for firms over the next 2 or 3 years than corporate M&A might have been in the past few years. So often that can be quite outside of your control at a very junior level in your career, where you don't really know that much and you're not really a subject matter specialist. So that can then limit people, or it can push people into a mindset. I find that I'm now pigeonholed as a tax lawyer or a restructuring lawyer or whatever, a litigator, and I can't make that switch. But thankfully, a lot of our clients, a lot of in-house legal teams, it's a lot more around the personality of, it's a lot more personality focused. How does this person engage with people who aren't lawyers? Because your clients are your internal stakeholders. It might be the accountancy team, it might be the commercial or the operations team within whatever company you work with. So you have to be able to go on the journey with that person and look at them as someone you're solution focused, rather than someone that's just there to provide black letter law advice and sit on the fence, but just be paid to give very good advice, but it's purely legal advice, rather than what's the wider impact of this legal advice, and should we follow it? So yeah, long-winded answer, but they're different. There's a lot more, I think, rounded skill set that people are looking for that switch in-house, and the area of law that someone, particularly at a junior level, has been focused on doesn't necessarily limit whether you can move into something quite different in-house.
Yeah, I think that was going to be another one of my questions, really. If there are trainees out there who are like myself, thinking about what seat they should be doing next if they are training in private practice, If they are thinking, I might want to go in-house down the line, are there any practice areas which are particularly well suited? Does it matter where you qualify into? Are there any areas that you really shouldn't be qualifying into if you do want to keep your doors open along the line?
Yeah, it's a good question, and one we're asked quite regularly. It's first and foremost, any experience that you can get in a client. So if your firm offers secondment opportunities to clients, then that's going to be great. So our clients in-house legal teams, obviously they're looking at a CV. So if someone's CV has a secondment experience, you've had the right experience, and also it's given potentially you as the candidate the exposure to what it's like to work in-house. It's probably flicked a switch that might have made you might have encouraged you to make that application. So someone's thought about it more rather than, all right, they're just looking to move jobs without really considering what in-house looks like. But your sort of standard stock answer to that is do as much commercial work. Like 70% of the work that anyone does in-house is commercial, but I mean that is so broad. I mean, it's very difficult to throw a hat around what that actually means and just categorize it into a particular specialism within a law firm. So that's the sort of stock age-old answer is do commercial contracts work. That could be IP, IT, corporate work is always good because you're getting a real rounded exposure and you're often project managing a transaction and moving that through. But within teams, within like construction and projects, procurement, anything that's sort of public sector focused, and you're getting some really good exposure to commercial contracts and issues. IP, data privacy, cyber, like all these areas are really important for most organizations and growing in importance. But again, I'll go back to my earlier point. I don't think, yes, there will be a CV that perhaps opens more doors and gets the interview without as much work as someone from perhaps a not so obvious sector. But if that's what your drive and your ambition is, and you decide that you want to move in-house, then you just have to manage your own expectations really as a candidate as what's achievable, and think maybe I'll need to take a step first. It might not be my first move in-house, might not be my dream job, but getting that experience is going to set me up for making that switch in a couple of years' time, or making that next move to where I want to get to. So yeah, as much around the commercial contracts and IP and the sort of corporate stuff or financial services, again, depends on which organization you're really sort of wanting to work within. But yeah, I mean, it's a tough route into the profession as it is. So getting a training contract is an achievement in itself, and celebrating that milestone and getting there and like enjoying working as a lawyer is one of the most important things at that time as well.
Yeah, I think that's a brilliant answer. And although I don't have experience necessarily, I would like to think that you wouldn't become pigeonholed if you were doing completely remote sort of practice area, and that you could make steps, like you said, to get closer towards your goal. And like you said, it might not be your dream job first of all, but hopefully, where there's a will, there's a way.
100%. And you might not find at that time, if you're not in the obvious practice area, that you're getting headhunted by in-house recruiters, because at the end of the day, like, we're looking for a particular skill set that matches a job spec. But engaging with and having conversations with and making it known that you want to make that switch, again, it's not going to be as easy as someone going from the exact profile, but having that will and drive and having the conversation and finding out what it is you need to do to get there, that's the most important part at that point in time. And perhaps, checking yourself and managing your own expectation as to what's achievable. And And when you get in front of a client, like our job then is to get that person and say, they get it. They know what in-house, they know what they sort of, they're going to click with the hiring manager. They're going to like their willingness to learn is the big thing for them at a junior level. So getting that person in front of the hiring manager to demonstrate what they're like off paper, off of their CV, then that's kind of our job at that point in time.
I'd like to take a moment to speak about the University of Law, which is the university I decided to study my LPC at. The University of Law is the sponsor of this podcast and makes it possible for us to continue bringing these episodes to you. So we really appreciate you supporting us by supporting our sponsors. What really sets the University of Law apart from other universities is its belief in training students for the real world from the moment they accept a place. The University of Law's experienced career service and award-winning pro bono clinics offer students the chance to get real-life legal experience which can boost employability. They offer a range of undergraduate and postgraduate legal training and master's degrees designed by qualified experts to help students excel at any stage of their career. Their courses are employment-focused, honing key skills in a teaching environment based on real legal practice. Part-time and online study options are also available on many of their courses to help students work and study at the same time. If you'd like to find out more about the courses on offer, please click the link in the description box of the podcast.
Are there jobs that are regularly open for NQ level, or would you say that in-house is something that someone coming across perhaps from private practice would need to do a bit later on in their careers?
So there's no one size fits all to that answer. Like I had a conversation a couple of weeks ago. We have our own podcast, Lessons Learned in Law, and I talked to in-house. Nice plug, thank you. Keep that in. Don't edit that out. Thanks. I had a guy on who'd moved on qualification to a tech company, and like he had constantly been told, and similar narrative when I was in another recruitment agency, is that do your 3 years in private practice, like get that black letter law experience, and then get a secondment during that time, and then at that point in time you're much more marketable, which holds water. I think those people aren't going to be struggling to get a job in-house, but more and more as the profession evolves, in-house legal teams are becoming way more sophisticated. There's a lot larger, a lot more want by most businesses to retain talent and to retain knowledge rather than to outsource everything to a law firm. So the in-house sector as a whole, I think, accounts for, don't quote me on this, but mid 20% of the registered lawyers on the SRA, and is sort of pitched at over the next 5 years to grow again by another 7%. So I don't know, again, don't quote me on these, but say it's 26 at the moment. I think they're sort of looking at it'll be around 33%. And as I said earlier, the SQE, that route into the profession, is bringing people in earlier, alternative routes and alternative structures to training contracts. So people can move in-house at an earlier stage. And certainly over the last 3 years, so we've had a bit of a talent shortage in as a whole, I think, as a country, or as a in the professional space, but in law that's certainly been felt, and it's been very difficult for our clients to pull people out of private practice where associate salaries are going through the roof. Quite difficult to compete with that for in-house teams. So that 3 year qualified's harder to pull out. So they have been looking at more junior solutions, people that are perhaps just as fresh out of their training contract and moving then. And I know our guys in our team are having some conversations at the moment with people who are in their last seat of their training contract and looking at options, qualifying in March time. So yeah, I think it's what's right for you. Like if it's the right thing in the right time, and you don't see longevity working in private practice, then my advice, and this is more personal advice learned from doing it myself, just at that point invest in your own development and future, and like really explore what it is that does motivate you and give you energy, and sort of try and commit to getting there. Because otherwise, I found I was just treading water, without really knowing, without a direction as to where I could see my future. So, yeah.
Thank you. I think that's a really great answer. And I think you mentioned a bit earlier, well, we know the state of the current economic landscape in the UK is not great at the moment. And I wondered whether that has had an impact on the recruitment market. Because previously, there were, I heard that the market was very active.
Yeah.
However, I'm not so sure about what the position is now. So I wondered if you could shed some light on that. And if there's what you think the future could look like.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've got, I'm a bit more positive on that than perhaps what you read in the what you maybe read in the press. Like the last 2 years coming out of 2020, where there was obviously a lot of uncertainty and lockdowns and organizations with hiring freezes, is what we found for a good few months during those early days of 2020. But since then, it's just been crazy in recruitment, and the markets have been very very busy. It's been very difficult for companies to hire, and retaining people and retaining staff has been a real challenge as well. So getting people back into the office, getting people or at least communicating that you need to come back into the office often leads to a bit of an exodus. So there's been, it's been a very good year. It's been very good years to be in recruitment, because there's been a lot of opportunities to place people into new jobs, but a lack of candidates. Recession, like, I think, we're in a recession, but what I'm sort of buoyed by is that there's always opportunities in down markets, and at the moment we're still in that place where there's a talent shortage. So unemployment is at its lowest levels, I think, for 50 years, but the recession curve is on the up, and that's something that's never really happened. I think in previous recessions, they normally go hand in hand and follow each other. So we're still, although we're going to be, it's quite interesting to see how that plays out into 2023. But I still think there's that need, or that talent shortage isn't going to go away. So there's still going to be opportunities. I think there will be, and there's been a bit of a slowdown, but there always is towards the end of a year. So the real litmus test will be in Q1 next year, where maybe budgets have been set for what the hiring needs are over the next 12 months for companies, and that might have changed. It takes a little while for things to trickle down into recruitment for organizations, but I think any slowdown was inevitable, because the last 2 years has just been fairly manic. So a bit of an adjustment, but probably more of a normal market in 2023.
Thank you for your insight. And would you say that it's important for lawyers to explore the market regularly? Even if they're perhaps happy with their current job, should they be going out there speaking to recruiters to see what else is out there, or should they just stay doing what they're doing?
Yeah, well, you're leading me down a path there. Yeah. I think I'm biased in my answer, so take it. I'm sure people would take it with a pinch of salt. But definitely. So I think it's again, I've been on the other side of recruitment. It wasn't something that I was. I said earlier, I fell into recruitment. It was almost a reluctant fall. I had other ambitions as to what where I could see myself ending up in a sales role within law. But then when I'm inside it, I just think it's so multifaceted, and like the insights that you get from speaking to people, if you're genuinely interested in individuals with companies, hiring managers, then like we're having conversations every day. So we've got a really good yardstick as to what the market's like at any one time. So building good relationships with, and it's doing your due diligence on a recruiter as well, making sure that you can rely on them, and they do what they say they're going to do, and they're not just sort of looking to make a quick win, but investing that time, then that recruiter is going to invest some time in you as well and share insights. Very helpful when you're coming to negotiate a salary review, to understand what you might get if you were to leave your current organization without having to go through the interview process. And our, like, as an organization, our because we're so focused on the in-house market, our candidates become clients and our clients become candidates. So for us, it's about investing in the relationship, and always is. So wherever we can help people, then we're wanting to share that information. So yeah, I think having a good couple of relationships with your go-to, building those relationships early doors with go-to recruiters that you can trust, stands you in really good stead. And I had a pretty probably a negative opinion going into recruitment as being a legal recruiter, but I saw it more from a private practice stance, because I was a lawyer in private practice, and yeah, there are quick wins there in that. But yeah, what's your view on recruiters, or what's been your exposure to recruiters? I know you're sort of early-ish in your training contract, but
Yeah.
even prior to that.
Well, I can't say that I've had too much experience with recruiters, because I was in my previous job for 10 years,
Mm-hmm.
and then I applied for my training contract. And then, I've been contacted a couple of times by legal recruiters, but, that was before I even started my training contract. So they're very keen, I would say. But the reason I asked that question is because I remember seeing a post on LinkedIn by someone, can't remember who, but it stuck in my mind because I just thought it was a great piece of advice. And they said that it's important to regularly make contacts with recruiters, because unless you know what the job market's like, you don't know whether you're being underpaid. You also don't know what other types of roles are out there. So even if you're happy in doing what you're doing, you just might not be aware of the other types of roles that are out there that might fulfill something that's maybe missing, that you don't even know is missing until you know that what else is out there. So yeah, I just thought that was great. And so I thought that it probably would be a good idea to just keep contact with some recruiters, just to make sure that you're being treated fairly by your own employer. Yeah,
I think it's important to do your diligence, and even on your current employer, to know that you're being paid right, or treated in the right way, or have the benefits that other people might have.
Exactly.
And you might not get them. You might not, by asking for them. It doesn't, and just because one other organization pays whatever, it doesn't mean that business is going to change on that reason. But there's push and pull factors for leaving any job. Like, I'm a believer that no one, we can't convince. We at that point, if someone was to call us and was interested in finding out more about the market, then I would look at them as being sort of passively interested in hearing about opportunities. But we're never going to make someone take a job that they don't want. It's all we can do at that point is to share information that we do have, and if something looks of interest, like I always, again, I've got this mindset anyway. I had it when I was a lawyer, but I don't think I've ever had a wasted coffee or a wasted meeting with anyone. You learn something new through having conversations with people, and if you put those barriers up to a recruiter, then you're probably, I think you're doing more harm than good. If someone's calling you, pestering you at your desk phone, then maybe politely tell them to jog on. But yeah, like, if someone's invested in, like, wants to, we'll share some information and help you along the way, then they're a good ally to have.
Yeah, I think so. And what do you enjoy most about being in in-house legal recruitment? Yeah.
Okay. So I love my job. We've got a great team. So we're a team of there's 12 of us in the company, and we've got a really clear focus on the markets that we serve and operate within in-house, and it's a real good community in the in-house legal market. So it's very relationships based. It's very like getting to know the client, getting to know the hiring managers and decision makers within those organizations. So it's quite social. There's a lot of conversation. So I love that day-to-day stuff. I really enjoy doing deals and getting that buzz of a transaction and getting something over the line and ultimately helping people. Like our business is our tagline or our mission is to ensure that people that work with or touch Heriot Brown are fulfilled by the careers that they choose, and that goes for clients getting the right people, for candidates finding the right jobs, and people within the business as well, like feeling that there's career progression as recruiters. So yeah, I really love it. Like, I'm energized. The legal you're on a journey in your career, and I wouldn't change for a second that I qualified as a lawyer or did the time that I did as a lawyer, because I learned so much from it. I actually bumped it like randomly last night. I was out in the city, and I bumped into a partner who was head of corporate at HPJ outside a bank tube station last night at like late on. I've not seen him since before I moved to Australia.
Wow.
Yeah, and he's like, "Oh, all right, you've got." He's like, "Love your online presence." I was like, "Yeah, thanks,
Oh,
thanks, David." So yeah, like, like
shout out
the
to David if
connections.
he's
Shout out to
listening.
David. Yeah, exactly. But he's at Addershaw Goddard still. So yeah, like I love making connections with people, and yeah, like the recruitment space hadn't been my plan, but I think now that we've got the plan and the infrastructure and plan in place for where we want to be as a business, then I'm really excited about the coming years. So so yeah, it's great. If anyone was interested in hearing about recruitment or legal recruitment, then feel free to reach out.
Definitely. Well, I think we're going to leave details to your website, Heriot Brown In-House Legal Recruitment, and also your LinkedIn page. So if anyone would like to get in touch, they can do that. But yeah, one final question. Do you have any career highlights that you would like to share with us?
Career highlights. Good question. Like I said, I like really enjoy doing, like getting to do what I really enjoy what I do every day. And there were times where I wasn't fulfilled as a lawyer and didn't enjoy. I had Sunday night dread, worried about, like, just not worried, but that's too strong a word, but not enjoying like going to work.
The Monday blues.
Yeah, and seeing it as a chore. Versus now, I sort of look at it and sort of freedom and independence that I have as a business owner, but also try to give to employees as well. Like just being able to so have that independence is like a career highlight, because it was something that's really important. So to be able to have got kids, so to be able to do the pick up and drop off when I'm needed, and to show up to that and be in control over whether I do it or not, and that's really important. So that's like that's a sort of abstract career highlight, but it is certainly something that's been enabled by being a business owner from my side. So it's a bit of a small example, but it's really important.
Are you joking? You've set up your own company that's successful. That's a huge highlight. I think you're definitely downplaying that one, but
well, thank you.
That's just my opinion.
Thank you very much.
Okay, well, Scott, it's been fantastic to have you on the show. I've really enjoyed our conversation and definitely learned a lot that I can apply to my future career as someone who is in the process of qualifying as a lawyer. So thank you very much for that. And thank you to the listeners as well for tuning in to this episode. And we will see you in the next one.
To hear more of the Student Lawyers podcast, hit the subscribe button and leave us a star rating and review. If you would like to join the Student Lawyer as a writer, please email hello@thestudentlawyer.com.